Brent, so good to see you. An interesting topic today: why a financial plan matters more than ever for retirement readiness. Despite ongoing concerns about inflation, debt, and the increased cost of living, many Americans remain surprisingly optimistic about their financial future. But that optimism has a clear link. Planning. According to the latest Wealth Watch survey here, people who work with a professional are more than 2 times as likely to have retirement savings and a strategy and are far more confident in reaching their goals, 84 versus 58%. So how does that relationship lead to more confidence and better savings?
Yeah, I always tell folks the number one thing I see is a lot of people are good savers. A lot of people have been diligently saving in their 401k. They've put together the big balance. But when they meet us, they're usually in their early 60s. We call them pre-retirees, and it's time to put it all together. And so they may have a million, 2 million bucks, but they don't have the confidence because they don't know how to equate that into a happy retirement.
Hmm.
And so it's one, you work with a professional because you don't know what you don't know. You need somebody who needs to put it all together. And so that's probably the number one thing I see is just getting them over the finish line. That's where we come into play.
Right. And that brings me to our next question. Having a pile of money is not the same as having a plan. And listen to this, only 19% of people have a retirement strategy. So what is the difference between having just a pile of money, your savings, and having an actual plan?
Yeah. So once again, that's what we design and implement for people. And so when they put all this money and this hard work into it, you've got to get the different pieces put together. And so I often see clients have various buckets of money. Okay. But they need that to work for them. And
Yeah.
so by designing things like an income plan and an investment plan and solving the five worlds of retirement, that is the difference. And I always tell folks, you don't have, in our opinion, you don't have a plan unless it is a written, documented plan. And that
Yeah.
is going to go back to the people who are confident are the ones who have that. They know I've checked that box. Somebody's got my back. And then the other one is just to keep them accountable to that plan. I
Hmm.
know how to work out. I know how to eat healthy, but I pay a guy that keeps me accountable. And that's because I know that I have to say, this is what I've been doing. They're going to say that was a good decision or that was a bad decision. What do we need to course correct?
Right.
So that continued relationship. And the other thing to highlight is the plan is going to change. I always tell folks a big plan changer is an inheritance. Okay, so we get everything mapped out. Okay, we just inherited $1 million. Guess what? We got to change everything, and that is absolutely fine. And that's why it's an ongoing relationship.
Right. It's definitely putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You mentioned the 5 parts of the retirement plan, so I'll put that up so people can see what goes into your process at Young Wealth
Absolutely.
Management. Meanwhile, Brent, inflation remains top of mind. 49% said inflation affected their finances the most in 2024. So how do you help clients manage those challenges while still planning for the future?
Yeah, inflation is never ending, and sometimes it's worse than other times, but it's something that you have to account for in the plan. So, one thing I often do that I think shocks people is when I'm discussing kind of how our process works, I say, I'll review your investments, we'll talk about risk. Maybe you're invested too risky, maybe you're invested not risky enough. And often people will go, what do you mean I'm about to retire? What do you mean I could be too safe? Well, inflation, and the only thing that takes care of that is having some growth investments that are going to keep up with inflation over time. So I don't care what the plan is. Usually there is going to be the need for those growth investments that it may just be a portion, but that's what helps to combat inflation over time.
Mhm, mhm. So then for those who feel behind or overwhelmed, what is the first step in creating that retirement plan?
Yeah, and so it's never too early to start. In a perfect world, every client would come to us early 50s and we would jump in and we get everything set. But it's also never too late. And so I've got clients who come on, when they're already well retired. But the first step is to just meet with a professional because until you can have somebody who knows what they're doing take a look at this stuff and really kind of help map it out for you, you're going to not have that confidence. And then the
Mhm.
other thing I recommend is just make sure they're a fiduciary because that means that they're going to make recommendations that are in your best interest.
Right.
They cannot make recommendations that are not in your best interest. So that's something to keep in mind when you're shopping around as well.
Right. I feel like that should definitely be the default, but
Right.
it's not often the case. Good point, Brent. Well, if somebody would like to sit down with you to help create that retirement plan and strategy, which again brings peace of mind, what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. So then go to young-wm.com or they can call the office at 614-430-8383. Megan is lovely. She'll jump on the phone, get you guys scheduled. We would love to assist.
Great. Brent, thank you.